President Cyril Ramaphosa, in his State of the Nation address, invoked the character of Tintswalo, meant to represent the life of a South African born into freedom in the country. It's drawn diverse reactions from people supporting the idea that the gains under democracy vastly improved the life and opportunity of Tintswalo, and others who say her experiences are not representative of broader South African society. Well, let's dissect the idea with Lethiwe Sinodumo Nkosi, who is with Youth Capital. Good evening, Lethiwe, and welcome to the program. Thank you so much for your time. So the president outlined many opportunities Tintswalo would have enjoyed through feeding schemes, housing schemes, free education, being able to study at a TVET college. What did you think of his depiction of her life since the dawn of democracy?
I would like to start by quoting a young person in our WhatsApp group chat. During the State of the Nation address, we had a WhatsApp group chat and we had young people comment on what the president said. And one young person said that Tintswalo's story is not the norm. It does not convey the realities of many young people in South Africa. In fact, we have 9 in 10, so 9 in 10, 9.1 million, in other words, young people who are not in education, employment, or training. Right? So these are young people who are not able to even access earning opportunities, who may not even be able to go to a TVET college and complete their studies there. Furthermore, you have 8 in 10 young people who've never had a work experience. And unlike Tintswalo, they are in their 30s, not filled with hope, but rather concerned at the fact that they will soon age out of the youth bracket, thus unable to access any interventions to address youth unemployment. And so, to quote another young person, Tintswalo's narrative ignores the many young people's lived experience, does not take into account the many challenges young people face on their journey from a place of learning into trying to earn a living.
What you're talking about there, Lethiwe, refers to some of the systemic issues that these young people in this cohort would have faced. Just share that story with the rest of South Africans who may not see it and whose experience it may not be.
So, just to highlight what we even outline in our action plan as Youth Capital, we know that when a young person is still in the education phase of their journey, they are not able to complete their matric. And that is a requirement by many employers for even first-time job seekers, for entry-level jobs. Many employers require the young person have a matric certificate, but we know that that's not the case. In fact, when we look at the class of 2023, we realize that the young people who started grade 1, 12 years from 2023, are not the same young people who matriculated last year. And so we know that many young people are not able to complete their education, get the qualification they need, not to mention the challenges they face if they do manage to go to a tertiary institution. And then you move from that phase and you go to the phase now when a young person may have a matric certificate, may have a degree or a diploma, but unfortunately, they're burdened by the cost of looking for work. In fact, we've recently put out a report around the cost of looking for work, and we know that it costs them what most young people can afford, considering the fact that in many households, young people come from homes where there isn't a working adult. And so a young person now has to think about the cost of data, the cost of transport, not to mention that alongside the cost of food, right, cost of grocery. And then you move on to and a young person is knocking on doors looking for work, and they're told they need to have work experience that they could not have possibly been able to gain because they first need to get the job in order to get the work experience. So it's this vicious cycle that young people experience. And also they face the experience of, jumping from one opportunity to the next because there isn't a clear pathway for a young person who's been part of an opportunity to then move on to the next. These are just some of the systematic challenges that young people experience on their journey.
What you're sharing then are the alternative characters of Tintswalos all across South African society. What I'm going to say next, Lethiwe, I don't say lightly because I think it's very easy to say, and yet there's such gravity in the words. What you're describing suggests that the president is out of touch, at least on this issue. Would you say that? And if you agree, what does that mean?
Absolutely, and I don't say this, as Youth Capital on behalf of the campaign, but also I say this echoing what we've heard from young people, who've told us that our government overall is not in tune with what young people experience. They don't listen or understand the experiences of young people. And what then that means is that we will find ourselves creating solutions to young people's challenges that actually don't serve young people. And we consider the fact that our country is, predominantly a youthful country. Majority of our population consists of young people. That means that we are doing a disservice to our population, doing a disservice to who we call our future leaders. And that therefore means it has generational impact when we are not able to understand what young people experience. We're not able to create solutions that serve young people.
So I guess the question is, how do you create that inclusivity so that voice is there? And the people who need to hear, and the policy shapers and makers are inclusive of this demographic where they make those policy decisions?
Firstly, the engagement with young people needs to be a meaningful one. Young people have repeatedly told us that they have been invited into spaces of policy making, but in a very tokenistic manner. And so, firstly, I would say that when our leaders, when our policymakers engage young people in an effort to be inclusive, they should not do so in a tokenistic manner. They should not do so where it's just a matter of counting how many young people in the room and they're calling that an inclusive engagement with young people. And I think, secondly, it means that you meet young people where they are. So find where young people have formed. We know that young people have formed youth formations. We know that young people have even started NGOs. Do our leaders know of those NGOs that are youth-led? And are they making the effort to speak to those young people who have started NGOs, who are doing work in their community? And also on social media, we know that young people use WhatsApp. It's an application that is easily accessible, considering the fact that young people don't have to use much data in order to use it. And so are leaders meeting young people where they are? And then I think furthermore, it's about really implementing what young people are saying. So not simply listening for the sake of ticking a box, but rather taking what young people are saying and putting it on board. And we've seen hints of that being possible. When we looked at the Basic Education Employment Initiative, we spoke to many teacher assistants who told us their experience of being teacher assistant. And one of the big points that they raised or feedback that we received is, the need for them to be trained in skills outside of the skills they need in the classroom. And we took that to the Department of Basic Education, and we saw that as they kept rolling out the phases, we saw an improvement. We saw that the training really sought to equip young people with the skills that they'll need outside. So it's all about that. It's meeting young people where they are. It's not being tokenistic. It's taking on board when young people tell you when they give you feedback about the initiatives that you create as leaders.
It sounds so simple and really obvious what you're sharing with us. One wonders why it's not happening in the way that you describe, to the extent that it needs to happen. Thank you very much for sharing that perspective with us. Lethiwe Sinodumo Nkosi is a network mobilizer at Youth Capital.